Today, story is Little Red Riding Hood. Once upon a time, in a quaint village nestled among tall green trees, there lived a sweet little girl named Little Red Riding Hood. She earned her name from the bright red hooded cape her grandmother had made for her, and she wore it everywhere she went. One sunny morning, Little Red Riding Hood's mother called her into the kitchen. "Dear," she said, "your grandmother isn't feeling well. She lives deep in the forest, and I think it would cheer her up if you took her this basket of goodies I've prepared." In the basket, there were freshly baked cookies, a bottle of sweet honey, and a bouquet of beautiful wildflowers. Little Red Riding Hood happily agreed to help her grandmother feel better. She tied her red hooded cape tightly around her shoulders, picked up the basket, and headed into the forest. As she skipped along the winding path, Little Red Riding Hood sang songs and picked colorful flowers. The forest was alive with the chirping of birds and the rustling of leaves. She didn't notice a sly wolf who had been watching her from behind the trees. The wolf, with cunning eyes and a sly smile, approached Little Red Riding Hood. "Good morning, little girl," he said, trying to sound friendly. "Good morning, Mr. Wolf," replied Little Red Riding Hood, unaware of his true intentions. "Where are you off to today?" the wolf inquired, his stomach growling with hunger. "I'm on my way to visit my dear grandmother. She's not feeling well, and I'm bringing her some treats to make her feel better," she cheerfully explained. The cunning wolf saw an opportunity to satisfy his appetite and deceive Little Red Riding Hood. "How about you take the longer path, dear?" he suggested. "It's so much prettier and more exciting. You might even find some lovely flowers for your grandmother." Trusting the wolf's words, Little Red Riding Hood decided to take the longer path. She wandered deeper into the forest, picking flowers and enjoying the beauty of nature. But the wolf, taking the shorter route, reached her grandmother's house first. Upon arriving at her grandmother's cozy cottage, the wolf knocked gently on the door. "Who is it?" called out a weak voice from inside. "It's me, Little Red Riding Hood," replied the wolf, disguising his voice to sound like the girl. "I've brought you some goodies to make you feel better." The unsuspecting grandmother, who couldn't see well without her glasses, welcomed the wolf inside. He leaped onto her bed and gobbled her up in one big bite, leaving only her nightcap behind. A short while later, Little Red Riding Hood finally arrived at her grandmother's house. She was surprised to find the door slightly ajar and rushed inside. "Grandmother, are you all right?" she asked, concerned. The wolf, now disguised as the grandmother, lay in the bed, covered with the sheets and wearing the nightcap. He replied, "I'm feeling much better, dear. Come closer." Little Red Riding Hood approached the bed, still unaware of the wolf's true identity. "Grandmother, what big ears you have," she remarked. "All the better to hear you with, my dear," replied the wolf. "All the better to see you with, my dear," replied the wolf, his mouth watering. "Grandmother, what big teeth you have," Little Red Riding Hood exclaimed. "All the better to eat you with," shouted the wolf as he leaped out of the bed. But just in the nick of time, a brave woodsman who had been passing by burst into the cottage. He had heard the commotion and rushed to Little Red Riding Hood's aid. With his trusty axe, he chased the wolf away, saving the little girl. From that day on, Little Red Riding Hood learned to be cautious in the forest and to always be aware of strangers. She never strayed from the path again and kept her red hooded cape close, cherishing the memory of her adventure. And so, the brave woodsman, Little Red Riding Hood, and her grandmother lived happily ever after, grateful for the lesson they had learned about the dangers that sometimes lurk in the woods. The moral of the story is, beware of strangers, trust your instincts,